Hey everyone, if you are a YouTuber, then you probably want to keep track of your subscriber or your view count. And what better place is there than your Mac menu bar? So in this video, I'll show you how you can use Bitbar and a bit of JavaScript to show a real-time subscriber count in your Mac's menu bar. So let's get cracking. So Bitbar is a tiny application that puts the output of any script or program right inside your menu bar. You can almost use any programming language, but I will use JavaScript to talk to the YouTube API. Speaking of YouTube API, here is the documentation for the endpoint that I'm going to use to get the statistics about my channel. This is called the channels endpoint, and if you give it a channel ID and you give it your API key, you will get back your view count, subscriber count, and video count. So let's test it out right now. Here's a little tester. It asks for the channel ID. So I'm going to go over to my channel and I'm going to copy the ID right here. Paste that in there. I'm only going to ask for the statistics. Let's click execute. And sure enough, here it will return the view count, subscriber count, and video count for my channel. And that is great. Now you also need to install Bitbar. I've already done that, and Bitbar needs a directory to store all of its plugins. So I'll create a new directory on my desktop called Bitbar plugins. And this will house all of my own Bitbar plugins or the ones I install from the internet. Now let's open up that directory in Visual Studio Code. And let's create some structure here. I'm going to create a new directory called src for all of our source code. And inside this, I'm going to create a new JavaScript file called YouTube subs.30m.js. Now this 30m part is to let Bitbar know how frequently it should rerun this script. Now YouTube's API is not completely real time, so I've set it to update every 30 minutes. I'm also going to make this file executable. I'm going to open up the terminal for that, and I'm just going to run chmod plus x and then give it the path to our file. All right, this will just make sure that Bitbar can correctly execute our script. Now we also need a dependency. I'm going to use request for making requests to the YouTube API. It's just a bit nicer than the built-in modules of Node itself. So to do that, I'm going to run npm install --save. I'm going to install request, and because I like promises, I'm going to install request promise native so then I can use those in my code. All right, and now we can start coding. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add a shebang as the first line of my file, and this will tell Bitbar how it should execute our script. In other words, we're going to tell Bitbar that it should run our script with Node.js. So a shebang starts with a hashtag and then an exclamation mark. Then you need to define your environment. We're just going to use user bin env. And then we need the path to our node executable. Now, usually this is something like usr local bin and then node. But if you're not sure, go into the terminal and just type which node, and this will point you to the node executable. So just copy this path, paste it in there, and you're good to go. Next up, we need to import our dependency. We need to import requests. So I'm going to create a new constant for it. Constant request equals require request promise native. And I'm also going to create two variables, one to store our API key and one to store our channel ID. All right, so let's fetch our API key. To do that, I'm going to open up Chrome and I'm going to go to the Google Cloud Platform console. You can reach that by going to console.cloud.google.com. And what you need to do is you need to make a new project in here. I've already done this. My project is called Mac Bitbar Scripts. And then you need to go to the menu. You need to go to APIs and Services and make sure that the YouTube Data API is enabled. So click on Enable APIs and Services, search for the YouTube Data API right here. In this case, it's version 3, and make sure that it is indeed enabled. Now, if it is enabled, go back to the menu, go back to APIs and services. This time you can go to credentials, and here we can make a new API key. So we're going to click create credentials. We're going to create an API key. This will generate an API key for us to use. So I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to paste it inside our JavaScript file. We also need our channel ID. So let's head back to Chrome. Let's go to our channel's homepage. Let's copy our ID from the URL, paste it in there, and boom, we've got all the data that we need to make our request. Next up, I'm going to define an object that contains all of the request parameters. So I'm going to call this request parameters, and this is going to be a JSON object. We're going to give it a URI, which is the URL of the endpoint that we want to make a request to. So let's head back to Chrome. Let's scroll down here in the documentation. There we can see what the endpoint is. Paste that in there. And we also need to pass some parameters to this URL. And I'm going to add them to the URL itself. So they're going to be query parameters. So I'm going to add a question mark. And I'm just going to request the statistics part from the API. And then I'm going to give it our channel ID. And I'm going to give it our API key. All right. And then I'm also going to set JSON to true. And now request will make sure to parse the response for us so we don't have to do this ourselves. Pretty handy. And now we're ready to make our actual request. So let's do that right now. I'm going to call request. I'm going to give it our request parameters. And this returns a promise. So we have to wait for the response by calling then. And we can catch errors with catch. And then we have to deal with errors there. All right, so let's handle the response from YouTube. Now, if we open up the documentation and you look at our little example, you'll see that we're interested in items. We're interested in the first item actually. And then we're interested in the statistics. And more specifically, we're interested in view count, subscriber count, and video count. So let's go back to our code. And to display these inside our menu bar, we just have to log them to the console. Let's do that right now. Let's do console log data. We're going to take the first item in the list. Then we're going to ask for its statistics, and we're going to show the subscriber count. Pretty simple, right? Now, Bitbar also supports some special syntax, but by default, it will cycle through all the lines that you've printed to the console. But that's not what I want. I want the subscriber count to stay fixed, and I want to display my views and my video count in the dropdown. And to do that, all you need to do is you need to log 3 dashes, and then everything after these 3 dashes will be hidden inside the dropdown. So then I can console log our views, for example, and I can say that the views are also in the statistics part, but this time it's view count. And let's copy this line. Let's also show our video count. And that is, of course, in video count. Now, we also need to handle any potential errors. If there is an error during execution, I'm just going to log it as error, and then error will be displayed in my menu bar. All right, so that should be it. Let's save the file. Let's run Bitbar and see if it actually works. So I'm going to open up Bitbar. And the first time that you run Bitbar, it's going to ask you to select your plugin directory. So in my case, it's on desktop, Bitbar plugins, and it's our source directory. It's not the root directory, because then it will try to run package log.json, which it obviously cannot run. So I'm going to use this as our plugin directory. And apparently it's undefined, but that's just probably because I made a typo. Subscriber. Yeah, that's not really how you write subscriber count. All right, there we go. Let's fix that. Let's open Bitbar again, hit refresh. And sure enough, there is your subscriber count right in your menu bar. And if you click on it, you can see your view count and your video count as well. And this will update every 30 minutes automatically. All right, so that was it. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and get subscribed. If not, well, then don't do those things. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.